And let me go ahead and, let me turn off my video.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I hope you are feeling as good as I am. We have heard some phenomenal presenters and panelists today. My name is Dana Fields Johnson, and I'm your moderator for this session entitled Babies in Baytown Supporting Infant Mental Health and Well-Being. We're going to be moving pretty fast in this session. We have a full hour of content, and I just want to warn you that there will be limited time for live Q&A. So please, if you have questions or comments, put them in the chat for this session. I know in the other sessions we've been saying put everything in the Q&A, but put your questions in the chat. The presenters will be monitoring that and trying to answer from there. And we're also going to encourage you to look at the exhibit area. The Communities of Care table in the exhibit area has Babies in Baytown's information there. They have some flyers. They have contact information there. While I am reading off the housekeeping rules, here they go again, y'all, with those housekeeping rules. Take a few minutes just to describe with the color how you are feeling about the conference so far. Or just say it if you want to, however you want to express it. How are you feeling about what you've attended at the conference so far? Just type that in the chat while I go over our housekeeping rules. This is a safe and supportive space. Please help us maintain a respectful and inclusive environment. And you all have been so great with that today. Please mute yourself at all times. Also, remember to use the chat functions to interact with other attendees. And in this session, use it to also ask questions of the presenters. My accomplice on this workshop is Niat Tekle. Niat is going to drop the sign-in sheet for this workshop in the chat, along with the continuing education unit form. So if you're wanting CEUs, you need to stay for the whole workshop. You have to sign in, and you also have to complete the CEU form that will be found in the chat. Towards the end of the workshop, be on the lookout for the workshop evaluation that Niat will drop in the chat. We want to get your feedback. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know how our workshop presenters are doing. Please join me in welcoming our presenters. Christy Serrano is the Regional Director of First 3 Years in Houston, Texas. Before joining First 3 Years, Christy worked in child abuse prevention programming, early childhood policy, and education philanthropy. Christy also has experience working with teens with disabilities and developing job readiness skills. Welcome, Christy. She is the mother of a new baby, Stella. She has a husband, Matt, and 3 adorable pets. Maria Faz Perez describes herself as a Christian and a person of faith. She feels blessed to be a mother of a young man on the autism spectrum and a teacher in the public school setting for 22 years. Big ups for our teachers. Working with children, youth, and families is her calling. She is the co-chair for Babies in Baytown Collaborative, which focuses on providing early education and mental health interventions for children and families. And last but not least, Laura Alvarado is the Community Systems Manager for First 3 Years, where she has developed an integrated and coordinated community system within Baytown, Texas, where every family has an equitable voice, is supported, and can readily access and choose from quality resources and services for their child. Laura is a graduate of Lee College in Baytown, Texas, with an associate's degree in business administration. As a part of her mission of continuing to give back to the community, Laura currently serves as a City of Baytown council member and mayor pro temp, where she serves as the secretary for the Municipal Development District and vice president of the Architecture and Engineering Committee. Welcome, Christy, Maria, and Laura. We are looking forward to hearing from you what we need to do to promote infant mental health and well-being. Niad, I'm not sure if we're hearing the sound.
Yes, 1 second. Please bear with me. We got some technical things. We're about to fix that out. 1 second.
Dana, I don't see a chat function on my end.
Niad, I know you're working on a technical difficulty. Are you able to give Laura and Maria chat access, or would they have to go through the mobile app?
It will be through the mobile app. Yes.
Do you have access to the mobile app, Laura?
Yes, I'll get that.
One more moment. I'm sorry. Give me one more moment. We're almost there.
All right, everybody. Next question for the chat. Tell us where you're from. If you haven't, I don't know if we've asked that yet in this session. We want to see where everybody is joining from, where the folks who are interested in baby and infant well-being are from.
All right, we are ready.
Thank you, Nia.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. We're really excited. Our team at First 3 Years and Babies in Baytown are really excited to be here virtually and recorded and wanting to share a little bit more about our work, and then also some really exciting content around brain development and infant mental health. And so to introduce ourselves, my name is Christy Serrano. I'm Houston Regional Director at First 3 Years. And with me today is Laura Alvarado and Maria Perez, and they will be taking over the latter half of our presentation today. And so some of our learning objectives, just so you all are aware, is we want to be able to outline the basic science of early brain development and the impact of toxic stress. Mental health starts at birth is what First 3 Years is all about, and how we really got engaged with communities of care and how they've started out as this really critical importance on the early years, early brain development, and that recognition that mental health starts at birth and is dependent on relationships, dependent on caregivers, and the community that surrounds them. Another learning objective for today is that we want everyone to, whether it's new information for you or this is something you already know, to be able to identify 2 conditions for supporting infant mental health and early relationships in your work. And it's really much easier than it sounds. And then the third is that we want to make sure that everybody sees the connection between those early years, early development, and the community impact work that is happening with babies in Baytown. So understanding not just the accomplishments, but the way forward for us in Babies in Baytown. And so just a little bit about First 3 Years. We're a nonprofit, a statewide nonprofit that really focuses on early relationships, and our work aims to ensure that all infants and toddlers experience strong and secure relationships with nurturing caregivers, no matter where they live. And so why the First 3 Years? As you can see here, experiences during this critical period create all the conditions that support not just infant mental health, but long-term mental health. Healthy social development refers to a child's ability to establish positive relationships. And we want to make sure that these children are able to regulate a range of emotions, both positive and negatives, in appropriate ways. In the first few years of life, that's what the work is. So regulating, being able to express emotion, not right away. We won't expect a 4-month-old to have any of this sorted out, but that's the work of infancy and toddlerhood, is to start figuring that stuff out so that the rest of life is, quite frankly, much easier. We also want to form close and secure interpersonal relationships. Many times it's mom and dad, but a lot of times it's not. It is foster parent, is it grandmother, is it someone else in that child's life that is really, forming those, 1 or 2 very, very tight attachment bonds in their life. Usually it's only, a handful of people that can actually have those secure relationships with children. So consistency matters. They're also really working on exploring their environment and learning. Exploration is key to all learning and all development and health. And then around brain development, we know that 85% of core brain development happens by age 3. So again, just stressing the most important things here. So we're going to get into these topics a little bit more. But first wanted to outline some core themes around infant mental health. So we, as I mentioned, believe that and know that relationships are core. And so nurturing, responsive, stable, and consistent care with at least one caregiver is essential for children's overall health and learning. This is good because most caregivers are drawn to babies and want to do this work. However, we know that the state of adults' emotional well-being profoundly affects the quality of the caregiver relationship. So a very well-known study is called the still face experiment. We won't get into that today, but if you Google it, still face experiment really shows how potentially maternal depression can really create a lot of stress and really tear apart that bond that's supposed to help babies thrive and really lay the foundation for their overall mental health. And so that's why the caregiver's emotional and mental health really matter. And we know we need to start early because prevention works better than intervention. And so why is infant mental health important? We went through some of these key pieces, but I guess if you were to just pick a top 3, it's the basis for their overall health and social emotional development. Also, don't want to forget to mention self-worth, self-confidence, and self-regulation, and that all of these things are essential for success and in school, and in life. So it's not all about school, right? Oh, I went too fast here. Let's go back. Okay, and so here's the work of infancy. So those first 3 years of life, we're working on brain development, we're working on self-regulation. Some folks in the school field may call this executive functioning. That's what self-regulation is, and or at least part of, and attachment. So we're going to briefly go over these 3 things with a primary focus on brain development. And so the beginning of healthy brain development really is dependent on human interactions. And next I'll show a slide on how brain synapses are actually functioning. But these relationships are critical to brain development. There has been a lot of work done to sort of show what does happen with brain development when it's not being nurtured. And so this is, prolonged neglect or things like that. And so one of those things that gets a lot of attention is usually the things that we don't want happening in early brain development. What we want to really stress is those responsive caregiving interactions are key to brain development. And this is the physical kind of growth of brain, but also the synapses that are forming between these really important neurons. And so these are actually brain images of a young child. And so you'll see that in the beginning, we're born with about 100 billion neurons. And then in the first few years of life, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second. So that's all the busyness that you see up to 2 years. All of that almost webbing that you see. Those are those connections, and those connections are important for skill building or regulation, for everything that makes us human. And so, it's not, a lot of folks, even in the early childhood field, want to separate social emotional with cognitive skills, but really the brain needs both. You really need these neurons to be forming strong connections and many connections. And it's a use it or lose it experience. So if you don't use that connection over time, it'll get pruned off. Much of that pruning is important. That's why if you're introducing a language, it's much easier to do it in the first few years of life, because after that, those neurons sort of break off and you don't have those skills pathways kind of embedded in your brain. So definitely not a bad thing that things are, this is not a regression that these neurons are not as strong or that they've disconnected. It's just a reorganization of skills and the brain getting really efficient about what matters and what can be overlooked, what can we just move on from. And so with that, we know that that's how skill building happens and that it has this use it or lose it function. And so here you, the bottom right corner of the screen, you can see what extreme neglect looks like for early brain development. And so not only do these neurons not form or were just chopped off super early in life, but the full brain is much smaller than a typically developing child. And so when we talk about toxic stress, it's this severe, frequent, unbuffered stress early in life. So it's not being responded to. So it's not always, a traumatic event or a loss. It can just be, no one picks me up when I need to be held. So this is very extreme examples, but toxic stress is everywhere and there's degrees of it. And so what we need to do, again, starting really early in life, is recognize that adversity is everywhere, and that there are things that we can do to promote early brain development so that when there is stress, because not all stress is bad, it's just that's prolonged stress, which you can sort of imagine as like you're just revving up a car for years on end, and that is not good for the engine. And so this toxic stress is something that in the early years we can not only buffer with early brain development, what we know, but it's something that we can help support the whole family around. And so that leads me to the second topic of infancy, the work of infancy, and that's self-regulation. And so when children are very, very young, even as young as, preschoolers, it's really hard for them to wait for things or to do things that they want right now. And so infants and young children need the support of nurturing caregivers to develop these skills. They do learn these things fastest when caregivers respond quickly to their needs. Sometimes we think that because a child is tantruming or really upset that they should be able to get a hold of themselves. But that's not necessarily true. And there's no such thing as spoiling a baby. And so when we think about the ability to self-soothe and self-regulate, that starts at birth. And that's, one of the main reasons that those first few months of life, especially the newborn stage, anyone will tell you have to, be really responsive. Well, that same logic should continue on into early childhood, because these are skills that really are not just responsive to the environment, but it's also something that's being controlled by the central nervous system, which is actually still forming. And so that is really important to remember that, emotions are okay, all emotions are okay, and that it's the responsibility of the adult to help young children sift through those emotions early on. The work just gets so much harder. And I know folks who are in restorative justice circles or things like that just get so much harder later in life. And so practicing those nurturing responsive things early in life can help with self-regulation. And attachment is the third work of infancy. And like I mentioned earlier, you really only have this kind of bond with a couple of really close caregivers, consistent caregivers. And that emotional bond that you're having with an infant or toddler is critical to their development and how they see themselves in the world. And generally speaking, there are two types of attachments. So we have secure and insecure. Children who grow up with secure attachments relationships are used to having their needs met on a regular basis. They interact with caregivers who anticipate their needs and provide nurturing care. And then all of these activities help children learn skills, but also manage their emotions. And in a nutshell, that emotional piece, social emotional development, is mental health. Insecure attachment happens in situations where the caregiver does not respond appropriately or is inconsistent. So it's either absent or inconsistent, so it's confusing. And these insecure attachments can be really stressful. So they're not the level of stress that may cause, the extreme neglect image that we saw earlier. But it is really stressful, and it interferes with their ability to learn and develop these normal social skills and healthy relationships of their own in childhood and later in life. Of course, this type of interaction also gives them more self-confidence to explore their environment and try new things, which is also something we want in our children's lives. And so I just covered a lot of ground on infant mental health. I wanted to share a video that is really well done that summarizes many of these themes and brings in experts from all over the country. And so I'm going to go ahead and play that now, and then we'll be back in a second. Oh, I apologize.
What do we want for our children? What's our goal? Our goal is to have productive citizens that are going to be part of thriving communities. So how do we get from here to there?
As we grow up and as we move into becoming functioning members of society, our mental health is an important part of how we perform our responsibilities as adults. Mental health can't be separated out from cognitive development and language development and kind of social competence, and they all have their roots early on in either a very sturdy or a weak foundation.
We certainly know that infants and very young children can exhibit behaviors, emotional behaviors, motor behaviors, which are predictive in certain cases of subsequent mental illness.
What are the early signs of mental health problems?
I think that when people look at children and think about mental health problems, that they have in mind often is the kinds of mental health problems that we see in adults. They're looking to see the equivalent of a depressed adult in a child or the equivalent of a schizophrenic adult in a child. And I think that because of the nature of development, that when children have mental health problems, they just look different.
Some of the early signs of greater risk for mental health problems are usually not called mental health problems by people. They're usually called, things like behavior problems, or a child who has difficulty controlling his emotions. Some of these may be early signs of what might be a mental health problem later, and some of which may be just differences among perfectly healthy children.
So what does good mental health look like in a child?
Good mental health looks like a child who's curious and interested in the world and wants to learn and can sit and reflect at times about what's going on. It's the ability to experience love, affection, emotions, get upset when things are upsetting, and bring yourself back into levelness without needing intense intervention.
How do mental health impairments develop in early childhood?
21st century science at the molecular level is very clear that all aspects of brain function are the result of an interaction between genetics and experience. Mental illness, as most people think about it, has a very heavy genetic component. Mental health, behavior, personality, also has a genetic component, but it's much more malleable in the face of environmental influences.
Genes and experiences, as far as nature is concerned, are just different ways of setting up operating systems, brain systems, neurons.
What happens when a child experiences what we call toxic stress, severe experiences that can be damaging to its developing architecture? Those toxic experiences essentially create this unstable environment, this unstable foundation.
If sound mental health provides a foundation of stability for a child's development, mental health problems can be thought of like a wobbly table. With a child or a table, there may be many reasons for instability. Identifying which factor is causing instability is the first step towards solving the problem. So how do we restore stability to a child's mental health?
We can detect the early signs of instability. Recognizing what these signs are provides the child with the opportunity then to be placed with healthcare professionals who are trained to develop a more balanced set of skills on the emotional control side.
The prescription is to provide support for parents and in that environment in order to reduce conflict, and that in turn will lead to a reduction in dysregulated behavior in the infant and young child.
Most potential mental health problems will not become mental health problems if we respond to them early. Providing the right kinds of supports and intervention early on will reduce the extent to which this will be a potentially more serious problem later.
Okay, so that did a wonderful job summarizing everything that we just went through today. And I want to just highlight one key point that was made is that it's the parents, it's supporting the family that is the key pathway to supporting early childhood mental health and overall health of the family. And in a second, I'm going to be turning over the presentation to our leaders in Babies in Baytown that are working on just that, on supporting parents, on supporting efforts that will help children thrive. And that it does, I think a comment that I like to make is, a lot of people who love children, love working with children, need to also recognize that in order to really make the biggest difference in that child's life, you have to also be in partnership and support the caregivers, so the people who surround that child. And I'm a big believer in early childhood programs, all these wonderful supports that support the child in, whether it's a home setting or in a center setting. At the end of the day, really the most important predictive factor of how the child's going to turn out in life is their family life. And they need to have present, resilient caregivers in order to turn out healthy and happy. Because we all know if the parent isn't doing okay, then the child is definitely not doing okay. And so with that, a recap on why infant mental health is important for you to know. You may be thinking, I'm not working with children, I do other things. But this is something that really helps kind of bring community around this. And there's a shared responsibility for promoting early development within families. This better understanding can lead to deeper relationships with both children and families, and helps sort of that new knowledge of, your 2-year-old is really upset. This is normal. This is very normal. And we can get through this together. And tying that to, they're not going to get this figured out for a long time now. And so let's respond. Let's keep being present until they do. And so, and I think the very kind of concrete thing that we can do is just help refer families to services or provide services to family. Because like I mentioned, if the parent or caregiver is not safe and healthy and emotionally and physically, then neither is their young child. So some of the projects that we've started out in the first couple of years of Babies in Baytown are specifically focused on those protective factors. So the three areas of work that we're going to cover today, Laura and Maria are going to be taking you through more details, is around Bright by Text, Baby Day, and our Community Impact Fund. And so Bright by Text is a program that sends these very developmentally appropriate messages to families based on their child's age and their zip code that really activates the Strengthening Families Protective Framework protective factors. And so it's working on things like providing activities that are developmentally appropriate and support social emotional development. It's also providing ideas for getting concrete support services that are able to help the family really thrive. And this is all the way, starting from the prenatal period through the early childhood years, so all the way through age 8. And so it's a really great program that it's in Harris County, and Babies in Baytown is leading the way in getting the word out and getting families access to those supports. Baby Day is a Texas-wide campaign, maybe one day national campaign, but right now it's a Texas-wide campaign that supports bonding and attachment through ongoing activities and resources online, and also through events across the state. And Baby Day has been a really great success in Baytown in bringing community together, providing that space and that celebration of the first, to really kind of focus on the first 3 years of life, which is not a typical thing that is found in a community on a regular basis. And so these protective factors, such as social connections and knowledge of child development, really directly impact infant mental health. And the last is the Community Impact Fund. And so that was thanks to dollars directly supporting our being able to distribute mini grants to community providers and also parents that are for leading and addressing the Thrive factors in their own way. And so we are really excited that we have a few partners this year that have launched projects. We have some mentorship going around with one in particular. And these projects, again, support other Strengthening Families protective factors, such as sharing concrete support in times of need and addressing parental resilience, specifically through opportunities to have leadership roles within Babies in Baytown. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our fearless co-chairs, Laura Alvarado and Maria Foz Perez. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the handoff, Christy. I appreciate it. And I'm here with Maria Foz Perez, our co-chair, as Christy mentioned, of Babies in Baytown. We've been having a lot of fun in Baytown, and one of the things that I want to state is that both of us actually live in Baytown. So it's been very exciting to see the transformation firsthand and getting to work with all of our neighbors, community partners in this effort. And so we're just excited to present to you some of the items that Christy mentioned, which is our Bright by Text service, Baby Day, as well as our Community Impact Fund. So Maria and I are just going to tag team on our presentation, and wanted to make sure she chimes in as she was our parent researcher, so she's lived in Baytown here for quite a long time.
Excited to be part of this project.
And we actually graduated her to become our co-chair through an election process that we held. So it's just been great having her involved from the very beginning. So with Babies in Baytown, the group actually was already a collaborative before I came on board, and had this wonderful opportunity to join them later in the process. And they applied for this grant. They saw a need and they applied for the grant, and Babies in Baytown was born. The name was actually part of a roundtable that we had from parents and partners. And we have been excited to just run with it and with our marketing campaign and getting the word out for babies in Baytown. So what you see on this on the presentation actually are the 5 Thrive factors that out of all of our assessments that we've done in community conversations, and the results really showed that this community wanted to focus on these 5 Thrive factors. So all of the work that we do is really concentrated around these factors. So it's early care and education, living wages, local wealth and assets, look, feel, and safety, parks and open spaces, as well as arts and cultural expression. So we're going to move forward in the presentation and talk a little bit about Bright by Text. So Christy introduced this service right before the transition. And so we're just happy with Babies in Baytown to be able to share in this partnership that First 3 Years has with Bright by Text. And so we launched it in Baytown in June of 2020. And so as she mentioned, this is really a text messaging service to really get resources, activities, tips out to parents directly on their text messaging service or on their phones. And so it's interestingly, we actually, during our assessment process, and I'm sure other organizations run into this as well, is how can we better get the word out to parents about resources and events that we're having? And, you know, we actually put that question into the assessment process because we wanted to make sure that we had the best way to reach parents. And a majority of the results showed that parents would prefer to receive a text message. You know, they're busy with their littles, they're out and about, and, you know, to have to stop and read an email or whatever, and not all of them are on social media. I was actually surprised about that during some of our community conversations, they're like, well, I'm not on Facebook, so I didn't get that. So this is an excellent platform to be able to reach those other parents and that are not on social media, as well as caregivers. We talk a lot about our caregivers that, you know, could be the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents who have a hand in the development of these children. And so we've been able to roll this out in Baytown. We found that this is also a great way to increase partner engagement, because aside from increasing our parent subscriptions, we want to have our local agencies be able to add messages to go out into the queue. The resources they provide, the services they provide, you know, what events are happening in the city. And so we are really working with our partners right now to make sure that they're providing us those resources to post in Bright by Text. So we also utilize local events to get the word out. So the photos that you see are some of the events that we've been to. It's a Pregnancy Resource Center had a family event, and so we signed people up. We talked to them about Baby Day. We, you know, got them to sign up for additional information to join us at different meetings. We've been at different pop-up events. Our school district has been very welcoming to Babies in Baytown, and so we were able to go out to some school events, as well as partnering with the local child care centers to be able to sign people up. And to Bright by Text, we did the same thing with our assessment process and getting the surveys out where our families are. So the whole thing is that we want to go to them. You know, we can't wait for families to come to us all the time, so we need to be where they are at. So it's become very fruitful for us to do that. And I'm going to turn it over to Maria to really go deeper into the parent engagement, as well as the opportunities for incentives that we've been able to give. So, okay. Maria.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about Bright by Text. And it has been a very useful tool with our parents. Like Laura talked about, we had a very good response after utilizing, comparing to emails and finding different ways to communicate with our parents. We realized that their response was much better through text. So this program has been very helpful. And it has been a great tool to increase parents and us communicating and giving them information about activities around the area. It has allowed parents to communicate with other families because we utilize a lot of our parent leaders that we met through our community conversations, and they have been helping us to recruit other parents to be part of this. And through that, we have created community by allowing parents to reach out to other parents and have them sign up other parents to our texting system. We also gave parents an opportunity to provide opportunities to work for us and have incentives. And what every time a parent will turn in the names of family members, they will get rewarded and they will get an incentive. So we have been able to communicate more and allowing them to create their own community and their own communication through this system. We also provided workshops for them, training so they could really know the system and understand it, and for them to understand what kind of messages were going to be included. So we're like hoping to find new ways to use this Bright by Text and create new ways to utilize it and connect to other organizations and to bring the information to parents that they really need. So we're hoping to learn more ways and connecting to more community, more parents, and just brainstorm some new ways to utilize this texting system.
That's right. And I think the incentives has gone a long way. And, not only did we utilize the parents that we've worked with, but we reached out to some of our partners and even teachers of some of the childcare agencies that may want or need additional, funding. And it's been really hard with COVID. And so I think this is just adding, that extra funds in their pockets, as well as growing our network. So I'm going to show just a couple of messages that have gone out. So we do local messages. And so parents can, or even agencies will be able to send out messages, whether to particular zip codes. They want to do it all to Harris County. And then we also have the National Bright by Text agency that sends out messages. So what you see on the screen for National Bright by Text is come talk, sing, read, write, play together in a format perfect for babies. And so all of these messages have to have some sort of website link or any to have more resources. So we're not including the entire message, just a snapshot. So we can get parents' attention and they'll be able to click on the link to read where it's at, the time, and all that great stuff. And so join us for free classes for parents or new parents. What's the best start for babies and a great way to improve your parent knowledge. And then for Harris County, messages sent out by Baker Ripley in hosting drive-through food fairs. We also have another message that went out about free school supplies and masks. So it's been very resourceful in terms of finding those different messages to be able to send out that parents really want and have been needing, especially during this COVID period. People wanting to get out already, and what's out there. Where can we get help? Where can we get Pampers?
What resources are out there?
Exactly.
There's a lot of information on milestones or things to look for children as they develop. If their speech is not correct, and what where they can go or what researchers they can connect to. So these texts are very, very beneficial to parents for education to provide that early intervention for our children.
Exactly. And so moving on to our impact summary for Bright by Text, this was actually conducted by a third party to show just really what our outreach has been for Bright by Text. So you'll see that 92% of parents are more confident because of Bright by Text messages, and that says a lot. And out of those parents, they have an average child of 3 months old ahead of a comparison group in language development. 96% have children who are developmentally on track or above average in language development, and only 9% feel overwhelmed by parental responsibility compared to the 21% of caregivers in the control group. So this is just kind of a summary of what's been going on with Bright by Text, the impact that it has on the parents and our subscribers. And so we're excited about the results, and we know that we can have so much more of an impact as we grow our subscriberships, not only of our parents and caregivers, but also of the different agencies that provide messages. Now, Baby Day. This is one of my favorite events. So we actually launched this for the first time in Baytown in 2020. It was right before the pandemic came out, and we got it in right at the wire. And so one of the things that Baby Day really does, and I know that Christy gave a small recap, but the way I look at it, we have a lot of great resource fairs that go on in different communities. This goes beyond the resource fair, and the resource fairs are great. Parents do get a lot of great information from there, but we want this to be more of an interactive session between baby and parent. The importance of that parent-child bonding, it goes a long way in whether it's the child sitting there with their parent playing, and the pictures that you see are actually from some of our first session that we held in person, and playing with their parent, bonding with them, whether it's getting that eye contact or that additional playtime with their parent, instead of, just having to walk from table to table, picking up resources. And so, science does show that the importance of the bonding with your child, it reduces your stress levels, your cortisol levels go down, and it goes a long way in the development of that child in not only their early years, but long term. So during the Baby Day sessions, we had some early literacy activities. We increased our partner engagement by inviting them to come out and host sessions. So we had some reading circles, story times, and infant toddler CPR. We took the opportunity to increase our assessment engagement as well. So we had our parent leaders there taking surveys and assessments and what else we could do in Baytown.
It was all collaborative partners as well in the area, and they each of them had an activity that was really made to encourage that early intervention and that early literacy. And it was very, very good activities where the parents could take, they were able to take materials home, books, activities where they could work with that at home.
Yeah.
So it was very, very beneficial. And it was a sense of community. It was community organizations and our community coming together. So it was a very, very beneficial event.
Yeah. And one of the best parts, I think, is that we challenged the organizations as they thought about what events or what activities they wanted to do, is to create the activity with something easy and, for lack of a better word right now, cheap, and inexpensive. There you go. And so we wanted to make sure that our parents didn't walk away like, how am I going to recreate this at home? I don't have these supplies, or I can't afford to buy these supplies. And so, we had someone doing the school district doing a gross motor skill activity, and they used like little M&Ms or just something easy that the child can follow. And so with those objects that, parents could easily do these activities at home. And so that's one of the cool things that I really enjoyed. And we had for the first session, again, it was in person. We had a little over 100 people in attendance. Now, 2021 was a different animal altogether. We ended up going virtual. And so we invited the same organizations to do something virtually. Some were pre-recorded, just like we're doing now, and some of them were live. And we got the word out as much as we could to our parents to sign up, our partners to do activities. And so we ended up with 184 in Baytown alone in attendance for Baby Day. So now we are planning for 2022, and we were so excited about the possibility of doing an in-person event. But these babies are right now the most vulnerable when it comes to COVID. And so we went ahead and made the hard decision to go virtual again in 2022. So we're just in the process of planning what that would look like, bringing back our activity partners, and just getting the word out to our parents that we are coming back. Although virtual, we're coming back for another Baby Day in 2022. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, so hopefully in the future we can hold a
live
event.
Everybody wanted an in-person one, but again, it was a hard decision, truly. So now our community impact fund. You know the saying of, why reinvent the wheel, right? When there's already something working. And so for our process, we actually looked at something that Healthy Outdoor Communities was doing, which is another community of care under the Hawk Foundation. And so we took a look at the process that they had. And then the city of Baytown has a neighborhood empowerment grant that they're also doing within the city to really empower the neighborhoods to get together and make projects and apply for funding to create these projects that will really impact their neighborhoods. So we took a look at both processes, and we had one of our partners, partner organization leader, she and I worked together to develop what would work best for babies in Baytown, and how can we create this opportunity for parents to apply for grants, for our nonprofit organizations to apply for grants that would really impact families with small children. And so after going through both applications, going through a design process, we put out the application, and we had some really great applicants that we had to go through. And so on the screen, you'll see we went and we did just a small gathering and brought in our grantees and awarded the checks to them. And we ended up having 2 parents that applied. The parent one of the parents that we have here on the screen belongs to Mom's Club. And she actually moved here from a different state and created this club because she found that there wasn't very many things to do for parents with small children. So she created her own Mom's Club here in Baytown. And so she took the liberty to apply on behalf of the club. And so she received funding to do a project, and it's to help prepare moms while they're pregnant before baby gets here. What does mom need? Does she need Pampers? Does she need, a crib? Does she need to help, preparing the baby's bedroom, whatever it is? And so that's what that group is going to do. We had Early Head Start, who's going to do a project called Art in the Park, and have all of the families come together and different organizations. So she is also collaborating with other organizations within her project. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. How are you working with others in the community? Because that's what we do. We're a collaborative. And so I'm excited to see that project come to fruition. Then we have Church Women United Child Care Center. They're doing something now because they are state funded as well. They have a little stricter guidelines. So they're going to do their project for all of the families that attend the child care center. They're going to have healthy cooking and nutrition. They're going to be doing some outdoor activities. They recently had their playground renovated by Ole, Texas. And if you're not familiar with Ole, Texas, you need to look them up because they do provide assistance to child care agencies to redesign their playground so it could be a little bit more as far as inclusive play, sensory skills, all of that. And so they're going to be able to showcase that playground and invite parents to come out and play. React in a Heartbeat was another grantee, and they do infant and toddler CPR classes. They've never done one in Spanish, and they're going to take this opportunity to do their sessions in Spanish utilizing this grant. The library was also another recipient, and they're going to be utilizing their funds to do Spanish and bilingual story times, because again, that's one thing that's been lacking is more bilingual programming. And so that's what they're going to do with their funds. I'm going to let Maria talk a little bit about what our other grantee, which was a parent, and what we're going to do to help her develop her grant. So all of these grantees have 1 year to do their project in 1 fiscal year. And so she's got some work to do on her project, but I'll let Maria talk to you a little bit about what we're going to do with Edie's Madrigal and her project. Yeah.
Okay. I'm really excited to talk about this project. Edie's Madrigal is a parent that we met through one of our community conversations. And this was during the time where we were like at home with COVID that we couldn't come out. And whenever we met with these parents, she was very thankful. She expressed, she was very thankful because she felt like parents were isolated. So she was very thankful that we included her in this conversation and that she was able to be part of this group. And when we talked to these parents, they expressed that, they kind of felt isolated during this time and that they felt that there was a need for support groups for families where they could share each other's, concerns and just be support for each other. And Edie was one of the ones that really spoke out. And she said she wanted to see parent groups where she could get advice from other parents that were more experienced, and she could get ideas on how to raise the children, or just any ideas to support each other. So she's also one of the parents that helped us with Bribe by Text. And I mean, we found out that these parents were actually the key to really get all this community into that system, because they went around their neighborhoods and their friends and family, and they helped us enroll families in this in Bribe by Text. So some of the ideas in her project I thought were very, very, very good. The only thing we didn't select her because it was incomplete. She needed a little bit more ideas on how to develop the project. So we have decided to pair her up with a mentor, and a mentor that is part of our collaborative. And through this mentor, we're going to guide her. We're going to give her that help and that support to really plan out her project and really develop her ideas. And some of her ideas were to bring families together in relationship and to really connect, to have some kind of emotional support group for parents, and for parents to mentor other parents, to have parent advocacy. She wanted children's social play for kids to play with each other. Since we have been so isolated through COVID, she felt that that was needed. And a lot of those parents thought that was needed for them to be able to have some kind of play group where kids can socialize and have that emotional and those social skills, with other children. She also talked about parent-to-parent communication and to participate in community events where they could maybe get a group of parents and go around the city and join each other in activities that are good for children, activities and events in the community. So I'm really excited in helping her. I'm going to also be helping her with her project, and we hope that her project can come to life soon, and we're excited to see that, to give her those leadership abilities to carry this project and just build community and connect with other parents. So look forward to seeing that project come to life. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, Laura, and Maria. Thank you for that important presentation about what we all need to know and be paying attention to support infant mental health and well-being. And one of my big takeaways that I heard was that it starts with supporting the parents and caregivers. I'm gonna we don't have a lot of time for Q&A. I want to remind everybody that you can find Babies in Baytown in the exhibit area in the Communities of Care booth. They have a few items there in the exhibit area. Also, just want to remind you to fill out the evaluation form that was dropped in the chat a little while ago. But to wrap us up, Laura and Maria, what would you say, what would you want to be the biggest takeaway for anyone who heard this today?
I think for me, it's the ability to really work with the parents and collaborate with them. And so we've been working with all of our collaborative partners, and we know that they have to be at the table. We need parents at the table to be able to move forward with our work, and most importantly, have them be a part of the ownership as well, because we want this collaborative to succeed once we've stepped away after the grant process. So I think that's the big thing for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for those parting words. Thank you, Maria. Again, Christy, I know is off at another event, but thank you to her as well. I hope everyone will hang around. We have an awesome general session right after this, Storing Community Trauma into Resiliency, an Indigenous Framework by Dr. Jeffrey Aceto. And Jeff is amazing if you've never heard him. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you at the next workshop. Take care.